My name is Debbie Wise, and I work for NeighborWorks as the Manager of Workforce Development, and then I serve as the Project Director for our NeighborWorks VISTA program. Also on the call today is Tina Dunphy. Tina works for the Corporation for National and Community Service. You may hear them referred to as the Corporation or CNCS. And she is the Ohio State Program Director and manages our VISTA program. Charlotte Wiltsey, our VISTA leader, is also on the call. Charlotte is monitoring the online chat. So we do have an online chat feature with the Zoom technology. So take a moment to find that on your screen because you'll want to use that to chat in any comments or questions you have, and then Charlotte will be answering those for you. So before we get started, I would just like to go over a few housekeeping items. We will be recording this presentation, and then you will have access to the recording and the PowerPoint slides on the member site. We have muted all the phone lines just for better audio quality. So please use that online chat feature to ask your questions. But we will be opening up the phone lines at the end of the presentation to address questions that way as well. If you have any questions that you are not comfortable asking in this format, or you just happen to think of something later, do feel free to email me. Our contact information will be available online during the presentation. So it's, don't feel like this is your only opportunity to get questions answered. I also would like to mention that we understand that the view might be cut off for some of you in going through some of these PowerPoint slides. That seems to be a technical glitch that we weren't able to get straightened out. So I do apologize for that if your view seems to be cut off on some of these slides, but we will be making them beautiful and perfectly viewable on the member site, so not to worry. So here is our agenda for the call. Is going to be going over the first half of the slides when she talks about the AmeriCorps VISTA program and giving you an overview of what that entails. And then we'll get right into the NeighborWorks VISTA program. I'll be giving you an overview of that. And we'll dive right into the application process and what you need to know to submit a strong application to NeighborWorks. Then we'll cover any important dates we'd like you to put on your calendar. We'll have some final reminders. You'll have our contact information, and then we'll go ahead and have a Q&A. So before I hand things over to Tina, I would just like to express how fortunate the NeighborWorks VISTA program is to have our project managed out of Tina's office in Ohio. We've worked together for 10 years now, and Tina and her staff have been tremendously supportive, and we're really lucky to have them, and that means you're lucky to have them. So with that, I will go ahead and let you get started, Tina.
Great, thanks, Debbie. As Debbie said, I sit in the Ohio office. I've been with the corporation for a little over 15 years now, and for the last 10, I've had the pleasure of managing the NeighborWorks VISTA program. And Debbie's been the project supervisor for the vast majority of that time. I will tell you that Debbie and her VISTA leaders and the folks at NeighborWorks have just done a tremendous job at putting a lot of pieces in place administratively for the success of the program. And so this project, including all the subsites, all the members that have served, are held in high regard by not only my office, but the corporation generally. And so it's actually one of the larger, not the largest any longer, but at one time it was back in the day, but it's one of the larger VISTA programs across the country. So this is a very special opportunity for you to join the NeighborWorks and the VISTA family. So with that, I'll just give you a very brief overview. The Corporation for National and Community Service, as Debbie said, sometimes called the corporation. We do a lot of abbreviations, CNCS. We're the federal agency that funds Senior Corps and AmeriCorps programs. Our mission is to improve lives, strengthen communities, and foster civic engagement through service and volunteering, and we do that through our core programs. Senior Corps, which is one of our umbrellas, that includes the RSVP, foster grandparent, and senior companion programs. And I'm not going to discuss those today, but certainly they would be a valuable resource for you to get connected to in your community. And then the other bucket of programs are the AmeriCorps programs, which we're going to talk briefly about each of those and more in depth about this stuff. So Debbie, all right, great. So as you can see, excuse me, I apologize for that. The VISTA program was started actually in 1964 in President Johnson's War on Poverty. It was born out of the same legislation that started Community Action and Head Start, and actually Sergeant Shriver was the primary architect behind the development of VISTA. It was originally intended, and it remains a core principle, that our VISTA programs are focused on poverty alleviation, and we do that through program development and organizational capacity building. AmeriCorps State National was created under President Clinton back in 1993, and the members that serve in those programs focus on critical community needs, and members do direct service, and I'll talk a little bit more about the difference between what VISTA members and AmeriCorps members do shortly. Then the third program is NCCC, again, another acronym that we are famous for using. And those members are focused on, again, meeting critical community needs. Those members live on one of 5 campuses across the country, and they focus on disaster recovery. That's a big activity for them. And they also do direct service for the project sponsors where they're serving. So as I mentioned, the VISTA program is intended to help an organization build capacity and eventually bringing communities and or individuals out of poverty. The core principles, one of them is ending poverty, as I mentioned before, and that can take a variety of forms, whether it be assisting with building low-income housing, helping a homeless shelter, serving at an organization that focuses on food security. It can just be a variety of activities that VISTA members may do. But the core principles are ending poverty, that the VISTA members' service is actually empowering the communities in which they serve. They are to build capacity within that organization, and that takes the form of doing what I would term, and I have to be careful here, more on the administrative side of things. So whereas an AmeriCorps member is doing direct service, a VISTA member does indirect service, as we call it, or capacity building. So just to give you an illustration of the difference between the two, a Habitat for Humanity project may have both VISTA members and AmeriCorps members. And the AmeriCorps members may be actually painting the house, putting the roof on the house, whereas the VISTA member may be connecting with local funders or local organizations like Home Depot or Lowe's to get materials donated or to get funds secured for the volunteers to have a lunch on that day. So it's really about building capacity. And then the last and really critical piece here is creating sustainable solutions. And that means that whatever the VISTA is working on or building during their term of service should last well beyond the VISTA's service term. So a lot of our VISTAs work on the development of volunteer recruitment systems, developing new business processes. I know that they've done a lot of data collection and aggregation and analysis for a lot of the NWOs. So just think through what it is your organization actually needs. So this slide, unfortunately, is a little cut off, but this is an illustration of basically an org chart of where everybody sits in this world. So as you can see at the top, we've got the Senior Corps and AmeriCorps logos, and then under that, the 3 AmeriCorps programs. Directly under the VISTA, directly under the VISTA bubble is the state office, and that's where I sit, I and my staff. Every state, or the vast majority of states, have a state office, and the staff in those offices are charged with developing VISTA projects and then administering those grants afterwards, as well as supporting members throughout their term of service. And then our relationship with NeighborWorks in this pictorial, which unfortunately you can't see, but you will be able to see once Debbie sends you the PowerPoint, is when you're looking at the PowerPoint to the right. So as a sponsoring organization, NeighborWorks serves as an intermediary for us, and that means that they have taken it upon themselves to write an application to the corporation to support a VISTA project that would place members in a wide variety of organizations. And in this case, it's the NWOs, or the places where you all work. And so in that world, you'd be termed a VISTA subsite. So NeighborWorks is the intermediary or sponsoring organization, and you are a VISTA subsite if you're successful in your application to NeighborWorks. And then we do have, I think Debbie's going to get into this maybe a little bit more later, but we do take a team approach to managing these grants. My primary contact is with Debbie and Charlotte, and occasionally I need to get involved in some subsite business, particularly when it pertains to a VISTA member issue. But for the most part, you'll be communicating directly with with Debbie, and Debbie will be communicating with me. But that's kind of what the org chart looks like in our world. So just to give you an idea of who VISTA members are, the requirements are that a VISTA member is at least 18 years of age. There is no upper age limit. We have a wide variety of folks who are serving as a VISTA member. I will tell you that the vast majority of folks are recent college grads, but that doesn't preclude anybody else from serving. We have a lot of folks who are maybe bridging the gap between careers or coming to us after retirement. So just keep that in mind. Those kinds of folks can bring a very significant skill set to your organization should you be in the process of recruiting later this summer. VISTA members must also be U.S. citizen or a legal permanent resident. They have to pass a review of their criminal history. If they indicate that they have a criminal history in their application, there are some processes we need to go through. But there's also an FBI background check that the corporation does, and we also check the National Sex Offender Registry. So they have to pass all of those in order to be eligible to serve as a VISTA member. And then this is really going to be critically important if you are awarded a VISTA member or a resource, or more than one, is that you ensure that your VISTA candidate meets the knowledge, skill, and ability requirements that you need in order to get the work done. That will be critical as we go through this process of recruitment and placement this summer. So just kind of keep that in mind. That's super critical for a successful project and successful member management. VISTA members make a full-time 1-year commitment to their sponsoring organization. VISTA members can do additional years, but it's not a guarantee. But they are expected to serve full-time while they're on assignment with you. So this is a list of some of the VISTA member benefits. On the left side are those that the corporation provides, and that includes a living allowance. The living allowance is indexed to the poverty rate in the area in which they're serving. VISTA was created as such to ensure that the VISTA members are serving at the same level of income of the people that they are intended to be serving. The living allowance will vary based on geographic area, so just keep that in mind. And if you are successful in your application, Debbie and I will work together to get a list of the living allowance rates for the new sites in the program. Another benefit is the Education Award or the End of Service Stipend. This is something that a member, once they complete a full year of service, is eligible for. They make that choice at the beginning of their term of service. The Education Award can be used for the cost of attendance at higher education institutions, or they have the option of an End of Service Stipend. So those amounts may change. They're usually bumped up sometime in May. So I'm hesitant to give you those amounts, but Debbie can provide those if you are successful in your application. But those are great carrots at the end of sometimes a very long stick, the VISTA service year. If by chance somebody chooses the End of Service Stipend in lieu of the Education Award, they have the opportunity to request forbearance or deferment of student loans, depending on which End of Service benefit they choose. They also get health care benefits. There's a child care benefit if they're income eligible and they need it. We provide some personal and medical leave at the end of their term of service, again, upon a successful completion of 1 year service term. VISTA members are awarded what's considered non-competitive eligibility for federal employment. And that doesn't mean that they're guaranteed a job in the federal government, but it means that they're put into a certain pool with other individuals, so they're not competing with the general citizen external candidate that might be applying for a job with the federal government. And then in addition, the corporation provides some relocation assistance, that's some mileage reimbursement, as well as a settling in allowance if they move more than 50 miles or relocate more than 50 miles to serve with your project. And then from the host site, these are some benefits that will be required, some that are optional. Housing assistance, I know some of the NeighborWorks organizations in the current project offer housing assistance to members. That's certainly optional, but it is a great recruitment tool. A lot of people find that a very attractive option when they're looking for sites to serve with. You will be required to provide mileage reimbursement to your VISTA members for any service-related travel. And then we certainly encourage you to provide professional development. You know, as I said, many of these individuals are coming out of college. This may be their first or one of their first professional opportunities, and it's a great time for them to gain some skills, and we would encourage folks to offer as many professional development opportunities as they can. So this next slide is really about the VISTA program cycle, and I'm not going to get into a whole lot of this because Debbie's going to talk about kind of the application process and some of the details around this, but as you're thinking about how you might use a VISTA member, what you want to do is make sure that you're beginning with the program with the end result in mind, right, in the development of the program. So you need to think about what it is you want to achieve, you know, 2 or 3 or 4 years down the road, and then work backwards to, you know, figure out what you need to get there, listing the VISTA member activities, developing the project timeline. You will need to apply annually for these resources. Our placements, or the number of placements that NeighborWorks is awarded every year, is based on an allocation that I receive from VISTA headquarters. So you need to think about what a VISTA member could do on an annual basis, but also in a long-term 3 or 4 year time period. And then, again, we want to make sure that all of our projects are reaching some level of sustainability as a result of their VISTA members' service. So these are some of the requirements of a VISTA subsite supervisor, which if you are successful in your application to NeighborWorks, you would become a subsite supervisor. You are responsible for recruiting and selecting VISTA members. Everyone is required to use our online recruitment system called the My AmeriCorps portal. So there is a system out there that's available to you, but you would be responsible for recruiting and selecting your VISTA members. Providing on-site VISTA training, we call it on-site orientation. That would be to orient them to your organization and the community in which they're going to be serving. You would be responsible for providing daily supervision to the VISTA members and ensuring that they attend the corporation's required VISTA member orientation. If any of you have been around with us before, we used to call this pre-service orientation, and it was a 3.5-day in-person training. We have moved away from that and gone to a virtual training. So that's what the VMO is. It's a replacement of the PSO. You'll also be required to provide workspace and any needed equipment, whether it be a computer, a cell phone, whatever it takes to get the job done that you're asking the VISTA member to do. And then a couple of the more important things, in my opinion, critical things for the successful completion of a project is providing coaching and mentoring to your members. That's true regardless of the age of folks, but certainly we know, Debbie and I, we know that the most successful projects have very engaged supervisors with their members. They have regular check-ins. They're available to provide coaching, some of the professional development that I talked about before. And then providing performance updates to members. The corporation only requires a end-of-year evaluation of your VISTA member called a future plans form, and I don't think that it has a lot of utility unless a supervisor is providing regular updates to a VISTA member. But Debbie will be providing more information related to that if you're successful in your application. And then one other thing that's on this list that you can't see is actually reporting out on program activities. And Debbie and I and some former VISTA leaders have worked very diligently on a reporting tool that will be shared with you if you're successful, and we hope that that will make your reporting easier. So supervisor orientation. In the past, again, what the corporation provided was a 2.5-day in-person supervisor orientation for all new sub-site supervisors. And again, because we've gone to a virtual format, that is actually in the process of development, and there will be online resources for you to access in addition to what's already out there on a couple of websites I'm going to mention later. But there will be a call that every new sub-site supervisor will need to attend. So it'll just be an overview of VISTA, and we'll provide some best practices on managing your VISTA members throughout their term of service. So Debbie will be providing you information related to that if you're successful.
Okay, Tina, well, I think that ends the first portion of the slides you were going to cover. Thank you so much, and feel free to jump in as we go along through the rest of this.
Will do.
Okay, well, as some of you may know, because I know we have some folks on the call that in the past have been in our program or may currently be in our program, but our VISTA program began back in 2009, and we are currently in the 10th year of programming, so we are headed into our 11th year with the 2019-2020 program. So as of today, we have 47 VISTA members that are placed at 32 different NeighborWorks organizations across the country, and that's actually a recent photo of all of our VISTA members when we had a lot of them come to the December NTI. And this is just a visual representation of where everybody is across the country. So Tina mentioned earlier about the key players, and if you can see most of the slide, it's more of a visual representation of where you fit into this player scheme. So like Tina was saying, if you're successful with your application, you'd become a VISTA subsite, and you and your VISTA member would be part of that subsite, or host site sometimes referred to. And the bulk of your communication would be between the sponsor, which is NeighborWorks America. So I handle most of the communication between our subsite supervisors, and then typically our VISTA members would communicate. Their first line would be with our VISTA leader. And then I communicate on your behalf with CNCS, which would be Tina in the Ohio State office. So this slide covers the VISTA program goals for NeighborWorks. So please pay close attention to this slide. It's really going to come into play as you think through potential VISTA projects and what you'd like to propose in your application. So the NeighborWorks VISTA program has the focus area of economic opportunity. So what that means is whatever project you're proposing must support or facilitate access to services and resources that contribute to improved economic well-being and financial security of economically disadvantaged people. Basically, what we're saying is your project needs to, first of all, aim to alleviate poverty. And the way that's achieved in this focus area is through one or more of these three objectives. So that could be through financial literacy, it could be through housing, and or it could be through employment. So let me just give you a couple of examples of what would not be a VISTA project. If you have a program and you need assistance on, say, a historical preservation project, or possibly you're working on a project where you're wanting to get a green designation for your building or your facility where your NWO is housed. Those don't lead to alleviating poverty and would not be considered a VISTA project. So first and foremost, you need to keep that goal in mind of ending poverty. And then how would you go about that through the economic opportunity focus area? So take a minute to think through that. And if you have questions, certainly you could, we could have a one-on-one and I could talk with you about that. But the first thing you want to make sure is that you have a VISTA project to propose in your application. Now, speaking of the application, what I advise all of you to do first, and this is even for the folks that have applied before, is to read through the instructions and the questions before you do anything else. And the instructions that we provide are heavily detailed. They're going to answer most, if not all, of your questions about applying for the program and what the program is and what we need and require from you and what you can expect from us. As with any application, you want to answer each question in as much relevant detail as possible, being very specific about the goals and objectives that you are proposing. I will tell you now, it is a long, thorough application, so it could take you several hours, and you'll want to complete that offline first. We don't want you to lose any valuable data. So we provide you with a fillable PDF of the application so you can complete it offline. And then when you're ready, you'll want to go online, copy and paste your responses into the online format and submit it that way. And then, of course, you'll follow what is called the ARCC rule when you apply to any type of grant application. Make sure you're keeping your responses accurate, relevant, concise, and clear. And then the one bullet point you can't see on here, but we're going to be posting this loud and clear everywhere, is that applications are due Friday, February 22nd. So let's talk about the application. Like I said, everything I'm going to go over in this slide and the next slide is in the actual instructions. So don't worry if, I'm going through this too fast, or if you have questions or you didn't seem clear at the time. All this information is in the instructions. But first and foremost, you're going to be describing what it is your VISTA project is. And you want to make sure that it's constructed around a specific long-term goal served at a specific set of beneficiaries. So, I can't stress this point enough, and it's important because the goal of VISTA is to end poverty. Your project needs to be poverty alleviating. You need to explain how this project leads back to that. You'll be asked to demonstrate the need for this project in your community. In the application, you'll see the actual question asks you to also provide statistics. So be very clear about what the need is. You'll also be asked to describe every VISTA assignment that you are proposing. And you might just be proposing one, and that's fine. If you're asking for more than one VISTA slot, you'll have at least 2 VISTA assignments, and the reviewers are going to want to see a description of every assignment. So that's going to include specific, detailed tasks, much like any position description, because we want to know that you've thought this through. So you'll want to provide objectives and supporting activities for what you expect that VISTA member to accomplish throughout those 12 months. And then at the bottom here, you'll need to focus, and Tina mentioned this earlier, on what your long-term sustainability and transition strategy is going to be. So we will ask you to provide a detailed plan on how you're going to transition the VISTA member out of the project. VISTA is a short-term resource, and most projects end after 3, maybe 4 years. Some projects could just be 2 years. But what you need to keep in mind is, because it's a short-term resource, we need to know how this project is going to live on and continue without the VISTA resource. And then the next set of questions are going to focus on monitoring and evaluation. So that's where you'll be asked to describe how you're going to measure the success of your project. And in terms of organizational capacity, this is one I really like to stress. You know, in theory, VISTAs are there to build the capacity of your organization. But the reality is you need a certain amount of capacity to begin with in order to manage a successful VISTA project. So in addition to just having the workspace and the supplies and the telephone, you need staff, or at least the VISTA supervisor, needs to have the time, the capacity, the commitment to do all the work involved to recruit, orient, train, and supervise this VISTA member. And it's a heavy lift. It's not a small job. So you want to make sure that you're ready to take this on, and you have someone on staff, and maybe that person's you, that's going to be committed in a way where you can offer the needed time and support your VISTA member is expecting. You know, it's a two-way street. You are looking for goals to get accomplished, and that can happen, and your VISTA member is looking to have an excellent experience and gain skills and gain mentoring opportunities through you. The next section covers project management. This is where you'll be asked to describe strategies that you'll use to manage your member. So that includes monitoring their performance and maintaining morale. You'll also be asked to describe how you're going to recruit for qualified candidates. And then we'll ask you to start to think through what you're going to put in your listing for recruitment purposes. So we're going to ask you what types of skills and experience you're looking for in a candidate, and because that'll be what you'll put in your opportunity listing in the My AmeriCorps portal that Tina mentioned earlier. And then finally, professional development. This is where you'll describe your on-site orientation. So when your VISTA members come on site, you'll be providing a minimum of a 5-day orientation period for your incoming VISTAs. Now, it doesn't mean it's 8 hours a day for 5 days, but the same way you would orient a new staff person to your organization, you'll need to orient your VISTA to your organization. And here are the program expectations that we have, NeighborWorks America has of you. We expect you to read and respond to emails that require response. We need you to read through your supervisor materials. You will be recruiting and providing that on-site training that you've heard us speak about. You'll be managing your day-to-day work of the VISTA member. You'll put in the time and energy into supervision and mentoring for that VISTA member. We will need you to verify attendance. That's something you'll do every other week. And then well, at a minimum every other week. If your VISTA member stops showing up, we'll need to know as soon as possible. You'll have reporting responsibilities. We do expect you to reach out to us and email with any questions, concerns, or call, or however you could reach us. You know, when there's a site out there that's very quiet, sometimes quiet isn't always good. So if you're having any kind of trouble or challenges, you know, it's best that you reach out to us early on, because oftentimes we can help with that and help mitigate any challenges you might be having. And then we do expect that you participate in various webinars. We do have a few that are required. We'd like you to respond to our surveys. And of course, well, the bottom one, which you might not see, is that you will need to stay in compliance with all the program rules and the regulations. The good news is that you have us to explain those rules and regulations to you and keep reminding you of them. So, you know, we try and make things as easy as we can for you. And we do a lot of work behind the scenes. And a lot of that you might never be aware of, and you don't necessarily need to be aware of. But just know that when you are in a program such as the NeighborWorks program, as the sponsor, we just try and make life as easy as possible when you are a sub-site in the program. And that includes, and you can see on the screen, program coordination and support, report coordination and support. We do offer technical assistance from other NeighborWorks America staff that we refer to as subject matter experts. So you will have us at your disposal to help support your program. A couple of really nice perks for the VISTA members are that they have access to free and limited online self-guided courses. Some of you may remember that we used to refer to these as e-learning courses. So these are really valuable professional and personal education tools that you can offer to your VISTAs at no cost through NeighborWorks. And then also every NWO that's in the program receives one NTI slot for every VISTA. And that works just like a staff slot. So we do encourage you to send your VISTAs to at least one NTI. And typically that NTI is the one that occurs in December, because we offer some special programming for all our VISTAs that come to that NTI. And this screen just covers the important dates that you'll want to put in your calendar and keep in mind. The applications are due February 22nd. And then we will be sending out award notifications the week of the 22nd in April. So that's also the week you want to hit the ground running. If you find out that you've been accepted into the program, that's when your recruitment should begin. And it may seem a little sudden, but you're already doing a lot of the work up front in your application process. So we're asking you how you're going to recruit qualified candidates. We're asking you what skills and experience you're looking for. We're asking you a little bit about what you're going to put in that position description. We want to know what the VISTA assignment description is going to say. So a lot of that work you're doing now. So when it's time to recruit, you'll be ready to go. And then we're still uncertain exactly when your supervisor training is going to take place. I just put in here May or June. But as soon as we have more information about that, I'll be letting you know. But it is important that every VISTA supervisor attend this training. And we also want anybody on your staff that's going to be managing the day-to-day work of your VISTA to attend. So we do have some organizations that have what we call project supervisors. They may not be the main point of contact for the program or the main VISTA supervisor, but for anybody that's working on a daily basis with your VISTA, it's very important that they understand the program and go to this training. And then August 19th of this year is when your VISTA member would actually begin service. So that's the day they report and they officially start at your organization. So a few final reminders. I'm just going to stress the capacity issue again. really think through if your organization is ready to make a serious commitment and host a VISTA member. We have some folks that aren't necessarily ready, but think through it and get their questions answered and then realize, well, maybe in a year or two. And if that's you, that's okay. But you know, you want to make sure that this is something you are able and willing and committed to take on. It's also important to remember that NeighborWorks and CNCS will be reviewing all the applications, and it is a competitive process. So not everybody that submits an application will be accepted into the program or awarded VISTAs, or not necessarily awarded all the VISTAs you've asked for. If you're submitting a proposal for 3 VISTAs, you know, it's possible you might only get 1 or 2. And then all NeighborWorks organizations are eligible to apply who have a rating, OATS rating of satisfactory or above. And this is us. This is the VISTA team. You have Charlotte and myself in the DC office with NeighborWorks America, and Tina is over in beautiful downtown Columbus, Ohio. And that's us there. Tina's in blue, I'm in white. And these were some of the resources I think Tina had referred to earlier. These are some really helpful links that you can click through to get some more information. And these will be clickable in the PDF in the PowerPoint when we put that on the member site. So don't worry about scribbling these down. We will provide all this information when everything goes on the member site. And that concludes all of our slides. So I'm going to say, let's see, how are we on time? Tina, you're still good to hang with us for at least 15 more minutes. So why don't we go ahead and open it up to some questions. Is there anything, Charlotte, that's come through on the chat that you'd like to put through?
Sure, just had one question asking, is this a travel training? I believe in reference to the supervisor training. And as far as I know, we don't know yet. We don't know whether that will be an in-person or online training, and we will let all supervisors know as soon as we have that information and the dates.
Yeah, we're still waiting to get the details on the training, but from what we know now, we do expect it to be online. Are there any other questions that came through the chat?
No, nothing I'm seeing.
Okay, well, if anybody would like to unmute themselves and come over the phone line, you are welcome to ask a question that way. Okay, I see one that came through the chat. Someone has a question about what determines the number of VISTAs you can apply for. Basically what determines that is the application itself. It maxes out at 3. So you can ask for up to 3 VISTA members. If you have a very compelling argument and reason to ask for more, then please get in touch with me offline about that. Let's see, there's a question about is receiving medical and personal leave. What exactly are the attendance requirements? I'm not sure if you're asking how many leave days they get and what the requirement is for that. Every VISTA member gets 10 sick days and 10 personal days. So a total of 20 leave days. So there's no requirement to earn those days. That's just what they start off with. I'm not sure if I answered that question fully.
I think maybe the answer to the second part is that they're in service full-time other than those days. Yeah.
Okay, any other questions? Feel free to use the chat or take yourself off mute if you'd like.
Hi, this is Sarah Page in Springfield, Mass.
Hi, Sarah.
We wanted to know, we've looked through the whole application and it doesn't necessarily look as though you've added questions, but we were just wondering if you could highlight any questions that might have changed.
The changes were actually very subtle. We took a couple out and expanded on some others. Let me see, off the top of my head, I think the performance management section where we ask you how you're going to successfully manage your VISTA. Instead of asking like 3 questions in 1 sentence, we broke it out a little more finely. So the changes were changes that just made the responses easier for the reviewers to read and score. So it's those types of changes. It's not so much that we actually added new crazy questions or took out major sections. So it is very similar.
Great, thanks. That's what I thought.
Okay, the link to the application, you can find that on the member site. So when you go to the NeighborWorks Network member site and you go under programs, you'll see the 2019-20 VISTA program, and you'll be able to access it that way. The other thing we can do is, I believe for all of you that are on this Zoom presentation today, we'll be able to collect your email addresses so we can follow up directly with all of you, send you the PowerPoint and the link to the online application. So you'll hear from us via email, but if that's not soon enough, just hop over to the member site and you could access the link to the application that way. Okay, well, we'll give you another minute or so to think of some questions and ask us. In the meantime, Tina, is there anything else you'd like to add or any final thoughts you'd like to share?
I think you covered most of it, Debbie. I see, for those of you who've been around in the program for a while, this is you would probably echo what I'm about to say, and this is a great opportunity for your organization to get additional help in building some capacity that you need. That doesn't mean that it's going to be easy. Debbie and I have worked through a number of issues with members who maybe terminate early for some reason during the year. They have some challenges. I think that just speaks to the need to focus heavily on ensuring that you are writing a good position description, or what we call a VISTA assignment description of VAD, that you're focusing on the right candidate and that they have the skill set that you need in order to get the work done, and selecting the right candidate. So it's super important to, one, as I said, for you to understand your own capacity and whether or not this is the right time for you to host a VISTA member or members. And secondly, what the plan is going to be for managing those members. And everything begins with recruitment. If you don't recruit the right person, things are not going to go well for you. It's very time consuming. So just be thoughtful about your application and think through the kind of person that you will need to fill that position, because Debbie's right. A lot of what you're going to be doing or what you're going to need for recruitment, you're going to be doing through this application process. So just encourage folks to, we're excited that you all are interested. It's always great to, talk to potentially new sponsors that come into the NeighborWorks VISTA program, but also existing sponsors. So those are my words of advice, Debbie.
All right, great. Thanks, Tina. Well, that actually segues very nicely into a question that just came through the chat, asking about the recruitment process and if relocation costs are offered to potential VISTAs. Yes, so CNCS does pay for relocation. Tina, are there new rules around that? Is it still over 50 miles?
Yes, it's still over 50 miles. The relocation allowance went up recently. I don't recollect what it is, but I know. So previously, the relocation, there are two benefits for people who relocate more than 50 miles. One is called a settling in allowance, and that's paid directly to the VISTA member in their first paycheck. It used to be $550. They can use it for whatever they want, but the original intention was to help pay for security deposits or rent deposits, things like that. And then there's also relocation, meaning travel reimbursement for the member as well. So if they're traveling from Georgia to Ohio, we would pay their mileage to get to Ohio, and then when they return home at the end of term of service, we pay for that as well. So two benefits to folks: the travel reimbursement as well as in that settling and allowance.
All right, thanks, Tina. So I went ahead and put up our contact information. If you want to jot down my email, dwise@nw.org, please feel free to email me with any questions. You might think of something later, and that's fine. Please reach out. I want to make sure with this webinar and with all the information that we are sharing, we really want to ensure that you have all the information you need to make an informed decision about moving forward with this and applying for acceptance into the VISTA program. When a project knows what they're getting into and they have the commitment and the capacity and they put the time in up front to recruit well and they get that right person, it's like magic happens. It goes very well. And you will have a great experience and that VISTA will have a great experience. Conversely, if the time and the energy isn't put into it, or you didn't really read everything and understand completely what you were signing up for and getting into, it may not go so well. So, and like Tina was saying, we've seen both happen. So we really want to make sure that you get all your questions answered so you can make the best decision for your organization on whether or not VISTA is right for you. So I'd like to thank everybody for your time being on this call today. Thank you, Tina, for helping to present. And thank you, Charlotte, for being online and helping with the online chat and the recording. And I hope everyone has a great rest of the day and read through those materials and reach out with any questions. Thank you, everyone.